Well, good evening. It is March 18th, 2024. I'm glad you were able to join us this evening. We have a special guest that will be spending some time this evening talking about all things related to health and medical. So I'm sure you'll enjoy Dr. Kemp's conversation with us. But before we get started, we like to take a concept that we've developed and spend a few minutes talking about that. And today I'd like to talk about what I refer to as until moments. And that's often the thing that happens um, when things go awry. We tend to have until moments that it's really wasn't until something happened. And I list a couple of items on the screen as examples. It's not until we're disrespected or attacked or ignored or not listened to or feeling unwanted or feeling rejected or have to endure a struggle or feeling frustrated and threatened and somewhat minimized and invalidated that we often then let some uh, unintentional behaviors show up. And what I think is important for us to do is to recognize those until moments are going to happen. Um, and what we have to replace that with is a great sense of intentionality, where we remind ourselves to keep our five closest friends close to us. And not these are not people, these are behaviors. Having a close friend with humility and humor and optimism and mindfulness and empowerment are very important. And that often when those until moments happen, if we can bring those things close to us in our mind and our behavior, will make a world of difference. But also some other things that we need to keep in mind is that we have a thing called the Navigator's Pledge, which is a reminder for ourselves to be happy and aware and appreciative and grateful. That also we have to keep in mind that if we want to eradicate those until moments, we got to deal with them promptly. Keep things pristine and with some sense of order and follow some sort of particular method because that's going to make the world of difference. In addition, we've talked several times over the last couple of months about the 4Ms, which is to have a map, make sure our mental wellness, our mediation, and seeking different options we're prepared to do. And we also have a cover of mentorship. And again, also recognizing we're a whole person made up with eight different parts. And we need to keep in mind the importance of our personal development and maturing into the best person we can be, the role of spirituality that has in our life, our health, our education, our environment, our family and friends, our finances are all equally important, as well as taking time to recreate. So keeping in mind that to be successful requires a lot of work. It's not something we can often just do one thing and it's going to make it successful. There's a compilation of stuff. But in order to bring us down, often it just needs that one event. But to keep everything going requires a lot of different things to be at play, but often to take us off our intentionality requires one event. I was talking earlier today with a colleague of mine named Donna Edwards. And Donna has been a colleague for close to 10 years now. And I remember when I first met her, I was visiting her at one of our sites, and we heard this big boom outside. And we went outside and we came to find that a tree had fell on her car and had totaled her car. And if my recollection serves me well, she had just got the car relatively recently. So it was a brand new car and totally destroyed by this tree. And I will always remember Donna's response. She was like, "Everyone's okay. No one's hurt. I'll, call the insurance company. I'm going to call my husband now and let him know what happened." But she was very, very calm and cool and collected with how she handled it. And I had a chance to talk with her today, and she has some other challenges that are going on in her life and the life of her husband. But she had the same attitude that I saw 10 years ago, which is that she understands that until moments are going to happen, and she's got to be prepared for them. And having, again, her 5 closest friends, and that she's going to be intentional, that she's going to recognize this too will pass. And I admire Donna tremendously with her attitude and her vision about life, and understanding that a healthy perspective is so important. So, sadly to say, we will all have moments that we'll title for this conversation as until moments. But we need to understand they're going to happen, and we should be prepared for them and not be surprised and pretend that they're just not coming our way. But again, I think that Donna is a good example of what we should do when those moments happen, and just be prepared for them. They're not going to come on our schedule. They're going to come on a schedule that's larger than us, but we should be prepared for them, and handle them with the sense of intentionality and decency that those moments require. So hopefully that is something you can keep in mind and focus on, and just remind yourself the until moments will come. And if we can just be a little bit like Donna Edwards, I think we will go a very, very long way. So hopefully that winning strategy has been helpful to you, and something for you to consider. Up on the screen under my name is the call-in. So if you want to call in and be part of the show and have a chance to chat with myself and or the guest, just go to that website and have your camera and microphone ready to go, and you'll be able to join in with us. And you may be able to claim the first call-in guest that we've had, and we've done this about 6 months now, and it has been very difficult to solicit someone who we do not know. So people have called in because we asked them to call in, but we have not had just like a free person who just doesn't know us call in. So you could claim the fame of being the first person to call in to the show. So if you feel inclined to do so, please do so. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest this evening, and it's Dr. Asia Kemp, who's going to join us.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your pathway to being the person you are today.
Ooh, look, that's a long story, but I'll make it short.
Sure.
So I'm Asia Kemp. I do have my doctorate, but I am a family nurse practitioner, so I do go by Asia Kemp. I also have my master's in nursing and science, as well as my bachelor's. I've been a registered nurse for about 20 years now.
Wow.
And recently transitioned as a family nurse practitioner after the pandemic. Um, so my
Can I ask you a question there?
Yes.
Why did you make the transition, and what did it have to do with COVID and the pandemic that made a different career path for you?
So I would say predominantly knowing that I did love my nursing career. So I always know I wanted to do something in the career nursing, and I started so young at age 21. So working bedside nursing does a toll to the body, and then after the pandemic, you know, that further did a toll to the body. You saw colleagues leaving. It's different now. Everybody is fatigued. So different care, different politics. So I actually was in school during the pandemic and completed like right after.
Okay.
Right after. So it was a good and necessary transition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I interrupted you, so please continue
No.
Sorry.
So yeah. So now my career has predominantly been in Philadelphia at Temple University Hospital. And there I did pulmonary, cardiac, and cardiothoracic intensive care medicine until I transfer over to where I'm at now, which is a federally qualified healthcare clinic
Mm.
in North Philadelphia, North and Berks, servicing the underserved, impoverished community in that area. So in North Philadelphia.
Wow.
The clinic that I work at been around since the 70s. So it used to be housed right behind Temple University in that housing project,
Hmm.
and now is in a newer building, but still in subsidy housing. And I would say I do love the transition. Same patient population, so it's the same patient population that I did care for at Temple, but it's now I'm able to do more preventative care, in
Hmm.
opposed to when I was in intensive care unit and more so trying to save a life, to get them back home. Now I'm almost preventing them from going into the hospital and promoting more like health and quality of life.
Mm. So, in all your years of doing the work that you're doing, I'm sure there's some things you'd want people to know. I mean, I'm sure there's some insight that you have, having seen the amount of patients that you have, that you wish that if you were given a bullhorn, that you could speak as loud as you possibly can to people. What is it that you would want people to know about their health, about medicine,
Mhm.
about just life in general, based on your experience, that you'd want people to be aware of?
I would say the main thing is nutrition. So I would say the main thing, honestly, is nutrition and continue to move. Come outside, don't stay in the house. But the main thing is nutrition, trying to eat as clean as possible, as less processed, especially now after post pandemic and with the inflation prices, everything is definitely much more cheaper and is making the community sick. So I would say nutrition is most important, and probably after that coming outside, like getting out of the house, getting from behind the screens, getting some sunlight, because mental health now is a big crisis. So you have the cheap food that's making people sick, but then you also have social isolation because, we are now more so behind the screen in opposed to doing, face to face interaction.
And that's very interesting, Dr. Kemp, that you point out the combination and the coupling of some of these things that happen individually, but when you add them together, and
Mm-hmm.
again, as you said, you have bad food that
Mm-hmm.
is made um, uh, economically attractive to purchase. You have where people are thinking they're on social media, and then actually reality is they're often just you know uh,
Hello.
poorly made commercials that
Mm-hmm.
give about their life, and all that's wonderful. And the kinds of stuff that you see, they don't talk about on Facebook. They don't
Right.
talk about, hey, I put on an extra 15 pounds in the last 6 months. So I think it's very interesting that you bring those together as almost like a quiet storm
Mm-hmm.
that's happening, and that we're just not aware. And in addition to that, we're sitting down and vegetating and not interacting with
Yeah.
people. So again, when you add a lot of those things together, you can begin to see how it's happening, and it just you're not even aware of it. So I thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that in your experience that so diet and activity?
Definitely diet and activity, but I will also advocate for medicine. So if you don't have the diet, if you don't have the exercise, then you do have other options. So there's different medications that's been out for long period of time that have evidence based health promotion and wellness. So a lot of times we shy away from medicine. Oh, I don't have high blood pressure, or I feel fine but your blood pressure is elevated. I don't want to take this blood pressure medication. I'm going to, lose weight. But then you never lose weight and you still eating the same.
Mm.
So it's also in addition to, diet and exercise, if medication is necessary, take that medical advice.
Mm. And
or
so,
ask for it. So if you in a depression, or you want to lose weight, or just anything, talk to your primary care, because that's the whole purpose of us being here, is to promote health, promote wellness, and to close the gaps in disparity.
sure. And Desiree posed the question, what are some things you would recommend us to eat? So what are some things that,
So things that I would recommend, um for those that do eat pork, white meat is okay. It's more so like the red meat, that's high in like the bad fat. So
mm,
fish is good as well. So salmon, sardines and mackerel is good, and fish oil. So fish oil is also good. So not frying the fish though,
mm.
baking the fish, not air frying everything. Air frying is going to bring out too much of them good greases, and it is going to be, if you have high cholesterol, it's going to attribute to your cholesterol as well.
So Doc, just hold on a second. So a lot of people think that air frying is better, but
It's
just,
a better alternative,
okay.
but you're still pulling the oils out of the skin. It's still delicious.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, the best option if you are hypertensive, pre-diabetic or diabetic, or, any of those things, is to bake the foods, is to bake it if possible.
Okay. And one of the other things that your relative, Selena, points out is often having these medical diagnoses cause mental health issues.
Right.
Depression and anxiety increase the risk for heart attack and stroke.
Yeah.
So again, I think you're pointing out the combination of these things that I think often we see them as separate, but reality is there may be more of a crosswalk between them than we want to recognize.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the word disparity. Would you just share a little bit more about what you mean by that when you bring that up as an issue that you see in the world and in your practice?
Right. So, I mean, just personally, just as a black woman, or a person as well, just my upbringing, I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I'm orphaned at a very young age. Had to support, look, still paying off all those degrees, through college, so I can relate to having to go to a free clinic for care, for maybe getting exploited, instead of being one cavity, it's more than one cavity, just for insurance purposes. So is the disparities in health is what I mean when I mean for the people that have insurance or might not have insurance, versus people who do have insurance, or who have access to care, or who have access to primary care, who can help guide their care. Because the main thing is, I feel like in my role, I do feel like I'm like the quarterback. They come to me. I don't even know if it really correlates to football, but that's how how I see it. They come to me, and I listen. It's also that gap, right? People go to the doctors, people of color, and they don't feel heard.
Mm,
So if my patients come in, if they have concerns, I listen, and then I refer if necessary. I never close the ear on a concern that they think is true.
mm,
I will work it up until we get a diagnosis, rule it in or rule it out.
mm,
Um, so it's the access to care. It's also the access to food, the
mm,
access to transportation,
mm,
to get back and forth. The access to just like a dietitian, just basic things, prenatal care, um, HIV prevention. I do that as well now, in primary care. So is all of those gaps, things that we take for granted on a day to day basis, that other communities don't have the knowledge,
mm.
or the access to.
And I think you bring up a good point that often those of us who enjoy privileges, and sometimes we enjoy them and don't even realize that we're
Right.
enjoying them, don't realize what it's like for the other person. And again, when we look at there can be, we have some of us are privileged when it comes to our health, and some of us are not.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are privileged when it comes to our finances. Others are not. Some of us are privileged when it comes to your family and friends, and some. So I think that reality is. I think you bring up a good point, is to just take the time to look at where there may be some challenges for other people, and
Mm-hmm.
where there may be some disparities that we may be perpetuating and not even aware of, because we just take it for granted that, this is the way it is for everybody. But
Yep.
I think often it's stepping back and to realize, when you're, and I remember recently I was hearing something, and they were talking about where for a lot of people that they're looking at medications and deciding which ones to pick up from the pharmacy. They got
Yep.
3 prescriptions, but they can only afford a certain amount of them.
Mm-hmm.
And my problem is I get a prescription, I fill it, and I, don't take all the pills that I'm supposed to take.
Exactly.
So reality is I'm looking at it from my standpoint. I have to remind myself to take the pills, and for other people, they have to figure out a way. They'd love to have to remind themselves, but they have to choose between, the cholesterol medication and the high, diabetes or high blood pressure or other medications. And again, that's something that I wouldn't normally consider, because again, that's, not my experience. But just taking time to,
Mm-hmm.
to realize that. And I think a lot of times people throw, you know, their medications away,
Mm-hmm.
or they throw their glasses away. And there are times in which that stuff could be useful to other people.
Right.
I know a person who has like 20 pairs of glasses, but only, wears about 3 of them. But there are so many people across this world that would just, love to have the opportunity. So again, as you've heard before, our trash is someone else's, truly their treasure. So I
Yep.
think you bring up a wonderful point by talking about disparities, and also the privileges that often perpetuate them, that we really need to check ourselves and to be mindful of. I
Mm-hmm.
want to go back to a question I asked before, because again, I know you've seen so much. Anything else that you want us to think about when it comes to how we can manage our health and our wellness? And I think along those same lines, I'd like for you to talk about mental wellness.
And
Um,
that's exactly where I was thinking myself. Mm-hmm. Just, personally, and what I promote is definitely mindfulness. You know, talking well to yourself, affirmations, coming outside, not staying in the house, opening the Venetian blinds or the curtains to let that sunlight in. Um, and then I also promote positive music as well,
mm,
because a lot of times, what I mean, you don't even know your subconscious is working in the background when you hear all this like aggressive music,
mm,
all the time. It's just aggressive. It's aggressive. So I also promote like affirmation musicians or just positive musicians, and there's a bunch of musicians out there. I also promote like sleep hypnosis, like just working pretty much on the subconscious,
mm,
just to affirm that you're going to be okay. A lot of my patients do have trauma. A lot of them are disabled, and they're in their 30s. So I do try to like help uplift them. Go and find a hobby, find a passion. You might be disabled, but you can go to senior citizens homes, to the sick and shut in, and
mm,
give back. So gratuity. I
mm.
think that's like a big thing, just being, grateful for what you do have, and knowing that you can, overcome come things if you're optimistic, and and you keep pushing forward.
You had mentioned in your introduction that you were an orphan, and so am I. But you seem like you've overcome a lot.
Hmm.
Where did that come from?
I mean, honestly, probably resiliency, just to know that I didn't want to be where I was when I was younger. Knowing that I always wanted to have stability. Um, Probably that was the main thing, always wanting to be, stable. Which means that, I had to, network, and you have to network, you have to mentor, you have to ask questions, and that's pretty much, what I did as I came in. Mental health, go to therapy, you got to check yourself, sometimes as well.
Mm.
Yep, exactly, find that silver lining. Mm-hmm.
And was there ever a person or a place or a thing that really was your backbone, or was there a combination of it? When you look at yourself and what you've been able to accomplish and stand for. How did you get there? And more importantly, how are you staying there?
So if I'm honestly speaking, I have been married, I don't know, maybe 17 years. I'm not sure now. Um,
You're having a masculine moment there by not knowing the date. That's what guys generally.
Listen, because that's how long we've been together. Too long, okay? So
Wow.
so as you can see, I'm like, but I do have to give him credit. We have been together since I was 15. I didn't have parents, and he was my support, my support person. Sometimes he was my Xanax when I was anxious, when I was in school. So, and also my friend network. So I might not have had that family, but I have like a good foundation. I have a good friend network.
So that I can only imagine was really really important to have. And
Hmm.
and you josh about being married as long as you have, but I think as you look at your circumstance as an African American female, being married 17 years, isn't that's a lot
Oh,
because
you know what? It might be more. Like we got married in 2006. What
you know
year?
what you
So is that 18? See, that all
yeah,
it feels like it
you're
ages me though. It feels like I'm just
wow,
getting old
you're
when I
messing up
say stuff
bad.
like that. And I don't feel like I should have been married for 18 years. But
Wow.
I don't even know. Something like that. Give or
Okay,
take.
but how did you do that? How were you able to get something that so many other people are trying to get? I pray that you're not going to say you lowered your standards, but talk to us.
I mean, it's hard work. I would be a liar to say it's not because we went through so many ages. I said 15. Now I'm in my 40s, so it's many. You know, ages. Are we perfect? Probably. No, but definitely again like hard work. Optimism, communication. You know, I would say definitely, and also I would say you have to have more like a team like spirit too. Everybody got to be on
Mm.
the same team.
Yeah,
Definitely can't be competing.
and Dr. Asia, I think that is such a profound point that you're making, is to make sure that when you're in that intimate relationship, it's not a competition. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's truly an effort to support each other and to partner. But I think a lot of times, I remember working with a contractor who was in a partnership, and he said, whenever we do work on his house, we do work on my house,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes sense for a business.
Right.
But often a relationship, and especially an intimate one, is not balanced.
Right.
Sometimes it's 80% you and 20% them, and it
Mm-hmm.
flips, and sometimes it's 60 and 40, but it's rarely ever 50-50.
Right.
And I think just being able to be realistic and
Mm-hmm.
understand that you want to get with someone that can afford to see you successful. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think you bring up a really good point, that often we don't recognize that we feel that competition and we feel not good about seeing them do well. That's probably not the
That's a red
person.
flag.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anything else related to life in general, Dr. Asia, that you'd like to point out for people? We talked about diet. We talked about exercise. We talked about mental wellness. Anything
Mm-hmm.
else that you'd like to point out?
Um, I was the one of the big things that I would like to point out is like you said, like the mentorship. Who gonna say I look 36? That's aging me. Who said 36? That's not young enough. You should have said
I'll,
17. You
I'll,
mean
I'll, I'll,
16?
I'll revise the comments here. Wow.
So I would say like exactly like collaboration.
Hmm.
Like working, working, it takes a community.
Hmm.
You really, it takes a community sharing information that you get, bringing people along with you, speaking to like-minded individuals, networking, and if there's a dream or a passion that you want to pursue, I would say pursue it, write it down, exactly, hold each other accountable.
Hmm.
Hmm. but definitely, write it down. Like, go out there and explore, you
Mm.
know? Mm-hmm.
Well, I really do appreciate the positivity that you possess, Dr. Asia, and your comments and your spirit that you're putting forth. I don't think you understand how I think that's going to be very powerful for people that have a chance to watch this. And I would just encourage you to keep that attitude up as you go forth.
Yes, thank you.
And one last question I have for you:
Mm-hmm.
what's on the horizon for Dr. Asia Kemp, and more importantly, what's on the horizon for Asia Kemp
Mm-hmm.
as you look
Okay.
toward the future?
So for myself, I am currently being offered the clinical director position across the whole specialized health system. So that's in the work for the next up and coming months. And then within that role, I'll work with the providers on health promotion, quality improvement,
Mm,
closing the gaps, making sure, we checking our boxes in primary care with prevention, colonoscopies and
mm,
mammograms, pap smears, promoting wellness,
mm.
making sure A1Cs and everything like that is done, lipid panels, overall
Sure.
wellness. And for myself, um, right now I'm just like dancing, like all over this degree, and these new opportunities,
Mm,
as a family nurse practitioner, as a provider, having my doctorate. I'm just really trying to explore, that avenue and honestly see how I can milk it just like I did, that RN degree.
mm,
Like what can I do, I mean the avenue is so vast, it's so many things out here. It's just a matter of networking, just like I'm here, tonight,
mm,
networking with you guys. So like it's just a matter of like networking and because there's money out there, there's a lot of grants. It's a lot of money out there. So I just want to see what can I do to help give back, because I do feel like my purpose is to
mm.
help close the gap and just promote health. So how can I get in it on under Asia Kemp,
Sure,
not, through another company to
sure,
help, promote, underserved population. Honestly, it's my patient population.
sure. And I get the sense, Dr. Kemp, that there's a book somewhere in there that needs to
Right.
be, if it hasn't already been done.
It's no,
I know.
there's
Um,
no books yet, but I don't know. Yeah, that would be a book.
mm, no, think about it. Think about it. Well, I'm going to let you go, and I thank you so much for taking time to join us
Thank
this
you
evening. I think
much.
you've enlightened a lot of people, including myself, with your thoughts and your comments. So thank you so much, and I hope we'll have a chance in the future to circle back and have a
Absolutely.
chance to continue the conversation. So I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. Thank you
Sure,
so much for the invitation.
sure. Thank you. Take care, Doc.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was truly a gem of a person and information that was offered to us this evening by Dr. Kemp. And I just want to share one last thing with you that I was asked to remind us all, and just to keep in mind the things that Dr. Kemp talked about. She talked about your health and personal development. It's important for us to keep, as you mentioned at the end, about finances and taking advantage of what's there, and also making sure the environment is healthy and opening those blinds and letting some sunlight in. And she talked about her pursuit of education. We didn't really have a chance to talk about the recreation, but you can get the sense, just her spirit is one that seems like she's having joy and just living life and embracing it. And family and friends, again, she's on the show this evening because one of her family members is a colleague of mine. And when asked, hey, do you have any ideas of who could join us? Dr. Kemp was front and center. So just keep in mind that our job is to keep all of these things going for us, and they're almost like eight balls, and that one is not more important than the other, and one is calling upon the other. Your spirituality, it requires your health and and a safe environment for you to be in, and your family and friends, and your education is supposed to again inform what you know about your health and your personal development, and so they're all intertwined. But there is a lot to do, and I think again, as Dr. Kemp shared, that if you can do it in fellowship, in a sense of community, what we often don't remember is that we are on our own, but we're not alone. This is our life, and it's yours to lead, but you're not the first person who's had that struggle or had that success. It is important for us to take the time to have those conversations with others, inside and outside of our family. Because again, once we start talking, we realize this is more shared than not. So again, I think this has been a rich conversation with Dr. Kemp. Again, thank you, Selena, for helping to broker that. Thank you, Dr. Kemp, for being who you are. And I thank you all for taking time and joining in today, and look forward to seeing you next week. So till then, stay well.